What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the News Channel 5 network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Issues of Faith. I'm Ben Hall. Today we're talking about the untold story of missionary work in Nigeria. And it's a story that will lead to a discussion about the Christian response to genocide. There's been a new documentary that has been put together with great love, no doubt, by Robert Parham, Executive Director of ethicsdaily.com. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing this documentary with us. It's called The Disturbances. Tell us what it's about, essentially. What brought you to this?
This is a personal story of what happened to me when I was attending a school for missionary children in Jos, Nigeria in 1966. Right before the beginning of a spelling test, a man ran into our classroom. He said to our teacher, "Please, Ma, I don't want to die." She then escorted him out of the classroom, and for 50 years I wanted to know what happened to that man. And that was one of the fragments that helped us begin working on the documentary. We got some other fragments. We didn't know if there was enough there to do a documentary, so we began calling people and listening to their stories. And gradually we did 26 video interviews and talked to countless people, obtained 2,500 archival pieces of data, and all that led us to be able to stitch together the documentary, The Disturbances, and the book by the same title.
You were there because your father was a missionary, right? Your parents.
Yes.
So how long were they there, and kind of what led up, how long were you there?
They served for over 20 years in Nigeria, and I lived in Nigeria for many of my elementary and early high school years.
And when I say that this will prompt a discussion about genocide, why is that? When you make this film, it is personal. What do you hope people take away? A better understanding of what missionaries do, and this discussion, which I think is very relevant today, about that topic, genocide.
We hope the documentary will tell what I believe is one of the most compelling stories of the mission enterprise in the 20th century. It's been untold. Churches don't know about it. The larger community doesn't know about it. And unfortunately, many genocide scholars do not list what happened in Nigeria as one of the genocides. And that's in part because people didn't talk about it. It wasn't well documented. But there were some 30,000 Igbos and Easterners that were killed in the northern region over a very few short days. And so to retell the story is also a way to launch a conversation about what genocide is.
Even your father was reluctant to talk about it, right?
My father never spoke to me about what he did in what was called the Jos airlift, of moving Igbos from the northern region to the eastern region. He never talked to me about it even after I became an adult. And again, we found that missionaries simply didn't talk about it after it was over.
And what do you think that means? I'm sure it was very disturbing, but would you hope, I mean, and that it would go beyond that one incident? Christians need to be engaged and talk about these things. Is that true, or what do you think about that?
Someone needs to be a watchman on the gate for genocide. There are some genocide organizations. The last 6 or 7 presidents we have had and have made statements about genocide like, "Never again," "Not on my watch." John Kerry said in March that what was happening in the Middle East, the targeting of Christians and other religious minorities by ISIS, was a form of genocide. And 6 months later, not much has been done to alter that reality. So I hope that churches and other houses of faith will become aware enough of the substance and dynamic of genocide to be able to be a watchman on the gate and to encourage governments and governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations to act in appropriate ways.
We have a clip from the movie, a trailer. It's going to screen in several places. University School in Nashville will have a screening, and we can talk more about that. But let's take a look at the trailer, 2-minute version of the trailer. This is The Disturbances.
And I remember seeing a Nigerian man running across the compound up above the basketball courts and into one of the classrooms.
I caught out of the corner of my eye a single man coming up past Hillcrest School, and it seemed very obvious to me that he was running away from something.
He was fleeing for his life. You could hear it in his voice.
My door was right in line with the direction he was going. And I was responsible for a classroom, that group of 7th graders. I really did not want that man coming in there, but he did come in.
The man rushed into our classroom right before the beginning of a spelling test. He was sweating profusely. He was wide-eyed.
And I went to meet him immediately. I didn't want those 7th graders to be disturbed or alarmed in any way about what was going on. And I said to him, "You can't stay in this room."
He said to our teacher, Ms. Wagner, "Please, Ma, I don't want to die."
I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And so I said, "Come with me."
Ms. Wagner quickly escorted him from the classroom.
Then I walked out with him and left them.
For 50 years, I have wanted to know what happened to that man.
Trailer for The Disturbances, the documentary you have put together. A lot of historical footage there, a lot of documentation. What caused this? So there are many different causes for genocide throughout history. This particular incident, 50 years ago, 1966, Nigeria, what caused this?
This was tribal. This was between the predominantly Hausas of the northern region of Nigeria targeting the Igbos, which were from the eastern region of Nigeria, or south of the northern region. And it was purely tribal. The shorthand minutes we found from meetings, the interviews from missionaries, their correspondence clearly said repeatedly this was not religious.
So it wasn't Muslim Christian?
It was not Muslim Christian. In fact, the missionaries, in a variety of documents, expressed great concern that Christians were involved in committing acts of genocide and looting the homes of Igbos. There's an unfortunate temptation in our culture to pitch everything in terms of Muslim-Christian conflict, and there's a lot of that. But this story is not about Muslims targeting Christians in Nigeria. This is purely tribal.
And how many people died?
Of course, no one knows exactly, but the conservative figure is 30,000 Igbos and Easterners were killed in northern Nigeria over a few days.
And that's astounding to think about. How unusual is that? That something could happen on that large a scale in just a few days. Did it happen from time to time? How unusual is that?
One of the things we know about genocide is that one of the stages of genocide is preparation. This was clearly planned. This was clearly executed. As one of our Nigerian scholars says in the documentary, these things could not have happened all at the same time on the same day without it being planned. Another example of that is that there were no gangs that came down our street in Jos, Nigeria. My mother kept waiting for them to come down our street. They didn't come down our street. They did go one street over where Igbos were living. How is that possible? They knew exactly where the Igbos were living, so it was planned and they were targeted.
And all right, we have to take a break, but I want to come back and talk. Your father was there as a missionary. You're living there as a young child. I guess, were they just totally taken by surprise with this? I mean, that's an excellent point, that there had to be planning, and yet this happens. And then what happens after that? So we'll take a break, come back, we'll talk about all that. Be back right after this.